South Korea ended 2024 with a botched martial law order and saw yet another South Korean president impeached this April. And just 60 days later, the country is now on the hunt for a new leader. We recap the last 6 months and what the past half a year has left us with. Joining me now is my colleague Kim Jong-sil. Welcome back, Jong-sil.
Thanks for having me, Tam.
So Jong-sil, it's been a hectic year for all of us in South Korea. Now, it was the December 3rd martial law order to begin with that caught the South Korean people and also the entire world off guard.
Absolutely, Dami. Today's election is honestly an aftermath of the December 3rd martial law. As you said, when then President Yoon Suk-yeol unexpectedly declared it in a late-night televised address. Now, he accused the opposition-led National Assembly of paralyzing the government and invoked sweeping emergency powers banning political activity, tightening media control, and authorizing warrantless arrests. You might remember the footage, troops surrounding the assembly building as citizens and lawmakers rushed there to protest the martial law. Then around 1 a.m. on December 4th, 190 lawmakers, including members of Yoon's own party, some scaling the fence to get in, convened inside, unanimously voting to overturn the decree. Martial law was lifted just 6 hours after the declaration. Yoon publicly apologized, but the political backlash was overwhelming. On December 14th, the National Assembly voted to impeach him. He became the first sitting president to be detained while in office and was later indicted for insurrection. On April 4th, the Constitutional Court upheld the impeachment, citing grave violations of the democratic order. Under South Korean law, a new election must follow within 60 days, and that brought us to today.
Jong-sil, it feels like yesterday that the martial law order happened, but it's been 6 months already. Now, we're seeing a lot of energy around today's vote, and a part of that momentum came early. Let's talk about the 2-day early voting that took last place, both domestic and overseas.
Absolutely, Tommy. South Koreans have already shown strong interest and engagement ahead of today's vote. Domestic early voting closed at 34.74%, slightly lower than the last presidential election, but still strong given it was held entirely on weekdays. Turnout was highest in the liberal southwest, like Jeollanam-do province, at 56.5%, while conservative regions like Daegu and Busan hovered in the mid-20s and low 30s. The National Election Commission introduced hourly turnout updates and installed CCTV screens showing the ballot boxes, part of a broader effort to boost transparency and public trust. As for overseas voting, the numbers hit an all-time high with a 79.5% turnout, with ballots cast in 223 locations across 118 countries, including first-time sites in Lithuania and Luxembourg. Those ballots have now been sealed and flown home for today's final count.
Well, Jong-sil, we have to talk about the campaign trail. It was a short but certainly turbulent race, especially for the People Power Party, hasn't it?
That's right, Tommy. The brief campaign period was anything but smooth, especially for the ruling party.
Previously ruling.
Previously ruling.
Right, no longer ruling.
No longer ruling, it is. In a chaotic overnight twist on May 10th, the ruling party leadership stripped Kim Moon-soo of his candidacy and rushed to replace him with former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, and by sunrise, he was officially registered. But by nightfall, party members had rejected the switch in a vote, and Kim Moon-soo was reinstated. He also pursued a last-minute unity deal with Lee Jun-suk of the Reform Party, but that too failed. He firmly rejected the merger, calling it regressive and a step backward for conservative reform. Meanwhile, the DP's Lee Jae-myung stuck to his message, promising to bring an end to the 6 months of political chaos triggered by the martial law.
And of course, the campaign strategies by the main runners couldn't have looked more different, right? Now, how did they try to connect with voters to convince them that they are the suitable leader?
Absolutely. Well, this election season wasn't just dramatic. It was also unprecedented in how some of the candidates hit the trail. Now, Lee Jae-myung wore a bulletproof vest and stood behind ballistic glass throughout the campaign, citing credible threats. I just wanted to correct that, not throughout, some of the campaigns, citing credible threats, including reports of smuggled firearms. It comes just over a year after he survived a knife attack in Busan, and it underscored just how charged this election had been. Kim Moon-soo spent the final stretch of his campaign slamming Lee, repeatedly referencing his ongoing legal battles. Now, Lee Jun-seok, meanwhile, hit college campuses using student cafeterias as a backdrop to rally young voters behind his call for generational change.
You know, Jung-shil, whether liberal or conservative South Koreans are heading to polls once again with one goal: to move forward.
Absolutely. I think today's vote will test whether the country is ready to rebuild the trust in its democracy after 6 months of political unrest.
Indeed, Jung-shil, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me, Tami.